I don't know, that was like an hour and a half or 2 hours of the TSDS intro to most of us. And if you're like the vast majority of us, you're smaller districts, you went home freaked out about the enormity of it all. So that's one of the reasons I asked that Karen have them come back again and share where they're at now and where the future states are at. Because if you missed it and you didn't watch the recording and you don't know what's ahead of you, this is going to be really, really important stuff. So Tim is recording it. When you get back, you're probably going to want to show this part to whoever handles teams for the district. And, for district our size, we didn't have anybody necessarily doing that at the level that we're going to have to from this point forward. So I'm going to get the assistant superintendent so they can see that it's going to be a big project. So, there we go.
Great. Thank you for having me. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you about the Texas Student Data Systems. What I wanted to go through today is really where we are right now with TSDS. And then what we've accomplished up to this point, and then going forward, kind of where we are right now, because we are right in the big middle of it now for some of the districts, and then have time for any questions at the end. So our current status, how many of you have seen this slide before? Just really looking at what TSDS is. We really started way back in 2011 with the introduction of the state-sponsored systems. And this is an optional part of TSDS, but what we did here is we contracted with 2 student information system vendors at the statewide level to offer a reduced price and improved functionality and a hosted system for the school districts. And I have a slide right after this, so we'll go into a little bit more detail on the state-sponsored SIS. So that was one of our first major components of TSDS that we rolled out a few years ago. As we move forward, and I'll show you the slides of kind of what we're in the middle of right now, is we're moving into production, our education data warehouse. This is where all the data will flow for TSDS. And that means for teams, as we move into TSDS teams and away from Edit Plus, and to the student dashboards as well. And then finally, with all the data ending up in T-Tier as the 5th component of TSDS. The data warehouse, again, that is where all the data is going to flow through. It is hosted at TEA. And that data is available only to the educators in the school district. TEA does look at the team's data, obviously, for funding purposes, but the dashboard data is just looked at and viewed by the educators. All this data that flows through is used to power the dashboards or reported to teams. The third component here on the slide is TSDS teams. We are moving away from our legacy system. Those of you that deal with teams or have people on your staff that deal with teams, Edit Plus is dying. It's a 20-year-old technology. We have billions of records out there that it just can't keep up with anymore. So the original business plan and business model of TSDS was to move teams to a new technology and a different data platform. And along with that came the student GPS dashboard. This was an initiative started by the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation and funded by them. They're the ones that put the money into developing the dashboard and doing the prototype around the dashboard. This is optional to school districts, but if your district opts into that, then you will have the student GPS dashboard system for your teachers down at the teacher level to see student performance reports, early warning flags, and performance trends. I'm going to talk to you more about in detail each one of these components. And then finally, the 5th component is T-Tier. Using this data that we're collecting on a statewide level, this is aggregated anonymous data that's used by researchers and that type of thing. But we're adding the pre-K through workforce so that that data can be seen from the beginning entry into the public school system to the workforce. So now I'm just going to go in a little bit through each of our accomplishments in this area. As I mentioned, we do have the 2 SIS vendors up and going. It was a a master contract negotiated by TEA to reduce price and improve the functionality of these systems. So TEA continues to monitor the services that are provided by TECSIG, the TCC, and Skyward are the two software vendors that were selected for the state contract. The features here are, when we negotiated with these two companies, we said, okay, this looks good, but you need to add all of these things into your functionality. So Texas has approximately 800 school districts using the Texas software. All of those school districts, whether they are on the state-sponsored system or not, get that functionality. The same with Skyward. As we had them improve their functionality, all their customers receive that functionality. But as over the 2 years that the SIS has been implemented, TCC has moved approximately 294 districts, to the statewide system. They receive all the functionality of the statewide system. Skyward has approximately 200 districts on their software in the state, and 52 of them are on the statewide system. So are y'all familiar with the state-sponsored SIS? Or any of you using it on that contract? At the end, I'll give you our website, because there is a SIS page on the TSDS website, and you can look at that to see the cost of ownership, so you can compare hosting a SIS at your school district to what the pricing is for the state-sponsored SIS. It may not always work out for this, depending on the size of your district, your technology that you're using, that it is cost-effective for you to switch. But this is a process that you can go through a formula that you can do that comparison on the cost of ownership.
How do we get that information?
It's on our website, and I don't know, should I change anything here to go to the website, or do that at the end, maybe? And I'll have the website on my last slide, and there's a SIS page, and it's just a drop-in. I can take you to it, and it'll have the total cost of ownership page there. Okay, so our next initiative, and this is really around the education data warehouse, was the implementation of Unique ID. So this happened. Is everybody familiar with that? Heard about it in your school district? It was an exciting time at TEA for us when we implemented Unique ID. We released the final version of it in March of 2003. So I want to go to the next slide and kind of talk about the reasons why we implemented Unique ID. Were to get the data into the education data warehouse, that first or second component there of TSDS, to get the data in, required us to have a unique identifier for those records coming in. And as we know, Social Security number and S number is not always unique, because one student can change between a Social Security number and an S number every week if they chose to, if their parent chose to not use that Social Security number again. So we really needed this unique identifier. Local ID doesn't work. There was no other ID out there that we're currently collecting that would work. And another huge benefit is that it's not Social Security number based. I mean, there is a big effort at TEA, and I guess really around the world, right, to quit using Social Security number to identify people. And so as we move into TSDS, our current team system, Social Security number or this S number is the key to all the records. And as we move into TSDS, Unique ID becomes that key. And Social Security number is just a data element that's recorded. We still need that Social Security number as we move to the data to the T-Peer and that type of information, because the higher ed and the workforce commission still use Social Security number to identify a person. But we are moving them and us in the direction of no longer using Unique ID. And this isn't part of my presentation, but as I heard Carrie's presentation, I kind of wanted to stop here, because as we've implemented Unique ID, and it has been somewhat successful. I mean, districts are reporting Unique ID in their legacy team system through Edit Plus now, and their PET files, and we implemented it backwards and added it to the legacy systems. So Carrie and her group have come to us with Project Share and said, hey, we can use Unique ID too for some of our initiatives. And that is really what's going on at the agency now with the whole TSDS implementation of how can we, as different divisions and different initiatives, use the data that's coming in through TSDS and the benefits that Unique ID gives us. So we are starting to work with her as well as other, you may not know this, but TEA as a whole, there's about 160 different data collections that we do. So as we did focus groups and things, as we were starting to design TSDS, one of the things that districts said to us is that, why do we have to send the same data in all of the time for all your different collections? So that is a major initiative of ours, is that you are sending that data in, and then the different collections, the different reports that need it are able to use that data, and you're not having to give us the same data at different times throughout the year. The other initiative that's going on with Unique ID is that we're working with some of the software vendors. We have an ability for the web service. There's a web service within Unique ID so that the SIS vendors, any SIS vendor, doesn't have to be the state SIS vendor, can hook in through this web service, and then at the time of enrollment, those registrars can go through and assign the Unique ID at that time. So several of the vendors are working on that piece right now. Are there any questions there or issues you wanted me to address that you talked to Kara? And the thing with Project Share is early in its stage right now, but we are going through that process right now of implementing that through TSDS. Okay. So the Education Data Warehouse, we do have that in test right now. That is the data platform where all the data is going to be coming through. It's in our final stages of testing at TEA, and the 7 LPRs, and what LPR stands for is Limited Production Release. Those are 7 school districts that in the beginning started working with the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation on the dashboards, and see they had it implemented in their school districts, and their teachers are using them. We were really testing, is this a tool? Is this a viable tool? Is it used by the teachers? So as we're moving from really the LPR world, the test world, into production, these 7 LPRs are going to be moving to the TEA hosted environment in November of this year. 3 more weeks. So we will start to have their data hosted at TEA, and then using the dashboards from the TEA hosted system in December. So that's our November release date there. So again, these the dashboards are, have any of you seen the dashboards or looked at any of this on the website or some of the videos that we have? We are, again, they've been using them, these 7 districts, there's only 5 here for 2011-12, but in 12-13, 2 more districts were added in there. And their teachers love the dashboard. There's been, in some districts, 100% adoption rate, because they keep statistics on how much the dashboards are accessed by the teachers. And overall, they received glowing reviews from the teachers and their usage there. So it really is a collection of reports and metrics. It combines data from many different systems, your SIS system, your assessments, your HR system, and puts them into these easy-to-use pages. There's a lot of, you can see some of them here, these indicators, red and green. It gives the teachers and the end users a quick eye to see when the student is trending down in something or trending up, whether it be grade, discipline, attendance. They're starting to be absent several times in a row, then they'll start getting these red indicators around their attendance. Another thing that we've done after we have the dashboards out in the LPR districts, we're moving them over to TEA. So now everybody has to be trained, because we have to know how to load the data, get the data into the data warehouse. And we have delivered that training to the ESG Champions, is what we call them, at the ESG service centers. And I'll show you that model here in the next few slides. The ESG Champions will be the ones doing the training and support down to the LEA. So they received all the technical training. Again, that was all about the XML and how to load the data and to get that data into the data warehouse. We've also been training our own staff. We're fortunate enough to be able to hire 5 additional support staff and some subject matter experts to maintain and go forward with the Texas Student Data System. So we've been going through a lot of hiring at TEA as well to have our support staff in place. So we've been training them in September and October. So that's everything we've accomplished in the last 18 to 24 months. And now what we're doing right now, like as I'm here, I have staff that are training. But some of the things that we have going on daily and weekly, we established a field coordination network. So those are the ESG Champions, is what we call them. There's a champion for unique ID, for the data, for pings, and for the dashboard. And we are really communicating with that group of people on a weekly basis now through webinars. We're going into details on different types of training. So TEA starts that communication. We provide it to the ESG Champions, and then it's their responsibility to deliver that information down to the LEA stewards, because there's a counterpart at the school district for each one of those champions. There's a data steward, a team coordinator, as we've always called them, and a dashboard steward. So that flow goes like that, and of course we want to receive information back and feedback back from the LEAs and the ESCs. Again, we have the same model, so you're going to see this as I talk about training and support. We are training, TEA is training the ESCs. The ESCs are going in and delivering that training to the LEAs. As LEAs decide to implement the dashboard, that is a training initiative on their part as well, because you have teachers, counselors, everyone down at the end level that has to receive that training as well. But our training delivery method, we have PowerPoint presentations and simulation, software simulation. And for the dashboard training, we have it really chunked into small pieces. So we know how difficult it is to get a teacher to be there for 8 hours. So we have some 1 hour and 2 hour modules so that you're able to deliver that training in small pieces to those teachers. And we use Project Share to upload that training material and for the people that go through the courses to access that training material. So this slide just kind of goes through those ESG champion responsibilities. Are there any some ESGs here? Are there any champions in here that are named? Yes? Okay. But again, we're relying so much on the ESCs in this implementation for them to communicate with the LEAs and then in turn give TEA the communication back from the LEAs. The ESCs are responsible for all the training out to the school districts and support, answering their questions about TSDS and just communicating out to the school districts the messages and the information that we're giving to them through the field coordination network. So they will, the spot a bullet is really it. They're going to support the LEAs with information, training, deployment. All of that and how that looks will come from the ESCs to the LEAs. And then, of course, there's similar responsibilities for the LEAs. So are any of you in here early adopters? Are you ready to start adopting TSDS for the dashboards? Yes? Okay, good. So, as you are an LEA steward, you will be leading the user acceptance testing in this early adopter year as we're rolling this out. And I'm going to talk about what that rollout looks like and how many districts we have participating. You'll obviously have to provide the training down to your teachers and principals as they use the dashboards. And again, you'll have your role in the support system as well. And I'm going to talk in a minute about how we are implementing a whole incident management system using TSDS. So TEA is wanting to move away from phone calls and emails, and we are implementing an true incident management ticketing system as we move forward with TSDS. Another key that I haven't talked a lot about is also being sure we're up to date with the vendors, because this is a huge responsibility for the vendors as well to be able to have their data in the XML format and sending it through the data warehouse. So here are the training dates that we're looking at right now. So the ESCs have already been trained in the technical area in September, as I said, and now in October, starting on Monday, we're going to bring the ESG Champions, Dashboard Champions in for the dashboard training. We had to do 2 groups because we're allowing 2 or 3 people from each region to come in. So the first session starts on Monday with 10 of the regions, and then the next session the 21st. So then the expectation then is that after we've trained the ESCs using these PowerPoints and simulations, then they'll go and train the LEAs. And our recommended time frame for that is that if you're a fall early adopter, you should be trained sometime in November. And if you're a spring early adopter, it would be sometime in February. So we did break the early adopters out into 2 separate groups, just for making sure we knew what we were doing, and we had just for scalability purposes, seeing how much data was coming in and making sure we were ready for that. But it is about 18 hours of training altogether for the dashboards. So the support model, we are implementing TSDS Incident Management System. So as teachers have issues to report on the dashboards, then they would submit a ticket, and then that ticket goes to level 1, which would be your LEA data stewards that would try to resolve that ticket. And if they're unable to, then it moves to level 2, which is the ESCs. And if it's still they're not able to resolve the ticket, then it moves to TEA, and we would provide the level 3, or maybe level 4 if we had to bring in a programmer or something like that to look at the program itself, the software itself. So as we implement TIMS, is what we're calling it, because we like acronyms at TEA.
Great acronym.
What's that?
Great acronym.
It's TSDS Incident Management System. So here, what's great about having it, and I'm sure many of you have incident management systems in your district, but by having this, we will have a knowledge base so that users can go and research their question or their problem before actually submitting a ticket. That any questions, problems, requests for enhancement, suggestions can be reported, and there will be a link in the software itself, the dashboards, or through the portal where you sign in and go into the software to access the TIMS system. So this is a big question for everyone. How do we deploy TSDS? So it is a huge project for us at the agency, a big initiative. And so we are taking a very waved approach, staged approach here, and how we implement it. I mentioned a couple of times the 13-14 school year is what we're calling the early adopter year. This is where we're really checking everything out, making sure that the data is flowing good in a timely manner, and that we're all able to access and use the dashboards and ping. So I'm going to talk about the pings column first, because the early adopter year is the year where we're going to test ping. So it's approximately 70 districts that represent around 500,000 students that signed up to be an early adopter for ping. And those districts have committed to sending their data through the Edit Plus system as well as through TSDS ping, so we can do a side-by-side comparison. And the thing we say at the agency is we will not release pings out to the rest of the year until we know for sure that when you earn $1 in Edit Plus, you earn that same dollar in TSDS. That means that your funding, your accountability, all those indicators are exactly the same between the two systems. And then as we get through that testing year, we're each year, 14, 15, 15, 16, and 16, 17, we're moving about approximately 1.5 million students. And we're looking at the number of students as opposed to the number of districts, because that looks at the number of records we're bringing through the system. And just making sure everyone here knows that we did send out an administrator address letter late last month, letting each district know which one of these stages they were in. Is everybody familiar with that? And then if you, as a district, didn't like your year that you were picked for, I mean, you may be, if you were picked for 14, 15 and you're changing your sys vendor that year, that's probably not a good year for you. And so we have a waiver process that you can go through your ESC and say, I really can't do 14, 15, I'd like to do 15, 16. So the same thing, I mean, you may be ready to move on to TSDS teams and you were placed in 16, 17. So you can go through that waiver process through your ESC and switch your year. So we just have to be real cognizant of the numbers that we have going in each year, because we all can't be in 16, 17. So, and then for the dashboards, it's a little bit different. The dashboards are optional, and so that is really through an application process. So each year we'll ask for applications of who wants to start adopting the dashboards in these years. But again, we have to monitor how many records we have coming through in the system capacity. So we will always have a fall and a spring or winter process, so that you can do it the first semester or the second semester if you wanted to. Any questions about that? Everybody knows their year? And at the end, I'll go to their website and show you where that is as well, in case you don't know where that list is. So here are our current deployment dates. As I mentioned already, the LPRs are going to start loading their data in November. In just a few weeks, they're going to start loading their data through the Education Data Warehouse on the TEA-hosted system. And then their teachers, it'll be ready for their teachers to switch over from the LPR-hosted system to TEA on December 1st. The fall early adopters, we did bump their timeline a little bit early in this summer. We didn't have them start in August, but we're ready for them to start now loading their data in December. And then the dashboard application itself will be ready for them to use on January 1. Some people may wait until February, they may do it January 15th, but we're ready as far as the system is concerned on January 1st. And then we have the spring early adopter rollout, and we haven't changed those dates. They'll start loading data in January, looking at the dashboards in February, and then they'll be ready for production on March 1st. And there's about 35 to 40 districts in each one of these stages for this fall and spring. Okay, so this is our website. Is it okay if I flip over to that? You're not hooked to the internet? Okay. So let me point out here, I think I can at least show you the menus here. So I think there was one question, the state-sponsored SIS. If you when you get to the TexasStudentDataSystem.org and you use the state-sponsored SIS drop-down, there will be that cost of ownership link there. And then on the home drop-down, there's actually a deployment link that will get you to the list and the rollout.
I'm going to go ahead and try to connect you.
Sure. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions for me? I think Karen did want me to mention what can you be doing to help us implement TSDS? And I know there's some service centers here, but as school districts, you need to be talking to your ESCs because they have a lot of information that we've been giving them. Yes?
This is more of a comment than a question.
Uh-huh.
We were told that the unique IDs were to be implemented
reconciled in our systems by October. But when we went to upload our students into Think Through Math and iStation in August, we, ran into problems because we weren't ready to do that. So I just wanted to, just to comment that was a challenge on our part because we had to scramble and students and teachers were upset.
I understand. So that's not the first. That's not the first time I've heard that one. And to be honest, it caught us by surprise a little bit that all these other initiatives were ready to use unique ID. So we've talked through. We understand the problem. It was the TEA Student Success Initiative. So let's start sending unique ID in because it's really a federal requirement that we hadn't been able to meet up until this point, right? Because we didn't have a unique ID. And so as these departments, we're learning, as these departments come to us and say, hey, we think, we need unique ID, we need to work on our communication and be better prepared. In fact, we're coming out with kind of an official statement. It's like now that unique ID is out there and it's really a PEIMS data element, all these initiatives want to use it because we all want to move away from social security number. So we saw that our process wasn't exactly right there because we know everyone was scrambling at the beginning of the year. But I don't think that answer is it's going away. I think more and more initiatives will be using unique ID, and that's why I'm really excited about the web service piece because now, as the web service, as vendors implement the web service and you're able to assign those unique IDs at the time of enrollment, then hopefully it's not this huge scramble to upload my file and to do all that reconciliation that we're really doing on a day-by-day basis. So did we get there? We're here? So here is so if you go under state-sponsored SIS, then here's the link to the total cost of ownership. And then if you go over here to the home page, let's see, maybe it's about. There's a deployment link here. And our TSDS rollout plan, PEIMS rollout plan, and then this will list all the districts and which year they're in. Let me see. There's a lot of information on the website. There's TSDS readiness checklist. Are you ready? Do you have everything in place that you need to move forward with TSDS? Let me find my list.
That's a waiver.
There's the waiver. Here's the waiver. The link to the waiver. This date is wrong. I need to update that. I think it's next week. It's October 15th. I think that you have to have those submitted by, is that right? October 15th? I thought my rollout plan was right. Here, list.
Can you go through that again, how to get there?
Sure. Because I'm not quite there yet. I haven't found my list. So in About, there's a deployment link. And that takes you to the page of the latest news with the waiver. It also lists your ESG Champions. So if you don't know who your ESG Champion is, there's the list of those there as well. You can see each one has an executive sponsor, a PEIMS Champion, dashboard, technical, and unique ID. Here's the list of early adopters. But I'm sure you know if you're an early adopter, because you would be getting ready. Oops. So if I can't find that list, then Karen, I'll send you the link and you can send it out to everyone. Because it seems to be the early adopters. I think it's a PDF and it's having trouble opening it. There we go. So did everybody see how I got there? I can go back, but this will list if your school, it has the list of all the LEAs, and you're indicated as early adopter wave 1, wave 2, or wave 3.
Can you go back to where you found that one?
Yes, if I can find it again. So again, I was on deployment. Here's the breadcrumb here about TSDS deployment, TSDS rollout plan, and then I clicked on the TSDS PEAMS rollout plan. And it just took me a minute because it is a PDF document, it's not another page. And I needed to click open here. Okay. And I can add, are you to send out the presentations?
I put them in the TECSIG group.
Okay.
And I emailed the link out to the list.
Okay, okay,
People
good.
that aren't here will connect.
Okay, good. All right, are there any other questions or anything that I didn't cover that you wanted to know? Well, thank you for allowing me to talk to you about TSDS, and we're super excited about continuing this rollout. I mean, Unique ID had its bumps, but overall, we view it as being very successful. We're getting a lot of good feedback from the field. The registrar out there, I got an email yesterday, is super excited that they can have this information at their fingertips, change demographics and all of that as they're working on their PEAM submission and their PET submissions. Okay, thank you.